We are the team of mediators for Science Gallery Atlanta.
We are
scientists,
trailblazers,
storytellers,
seekers,
questioners.
We are artists.
We are Emory University students, and we are here to invite you
to join us,
to gain courage,
use your voice,
and express yourself without judgment.
Because when you do,
energy is activated,
and an upsurge in creativity is transferred.
What can happen if you access new ways of thinking and expressing?
At Science Gallery Atlanta, we are using virtual experiences and engagement
to connect and see how we can open up
and help us all cope and set the tone for the rest of the day,
the rest of the year,
and maybe the rest of our lives.
Let's be, let's act, because our ability to improve conditions happens when we come together.
Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Shayna. I'm an Emory University student and one of the student mediators at Science Gallery Atlanta. We at Science Gallery Atlanta are hosting a virtual series about coping mechanisms. Because of this current state of our society and the stressors it creates, there's no more important time than now to have these conversations. Today, I'm joined by Jericho Brown for a discussion about self-expression through creative outlets as a way to cope with personal and societal trauma. Jericho, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. Could you please introduce yourself for us?
My name is Jericho Brown, and I'm a poet.
Perfect. I would be honored if you would share a poem if you brought one today.
Sure, I'll read a poem for you.
Great.
Bullet points. I will not shoot myself in the head, and I will not shoot myself in the back. And I will not hang myself with a trash bag. And if I do, I promise you, I will not do it in a police car while handcuffed or in the jail cell of a town I only know the name of because I have to drive through it to get home. Yes, I may be at risk, but I promise you, I trust the maggots who live beneath the floorboards of my house to do what they must to any carcass more than I trust an officer of the law of the land to shut my eyes like a man of God might, or to cover me with a sheet so clean my mother could have used it to tuck me in. When I kill me, I will do it the same way most Americans do. I promise you, cigarette smoke, or a piece of meat on which I choke, or so broke I freeze in one of these winters we keep calling worst. I promise if you hear of me dead anywhere near a cop, then that cop killed me. He took me from us and left my body, which is, no matter what we've been taught, greater than the settlement a city can pay a mother to stop crying, and more beautiful than the new bullet fished from the folds of my brain.
That was very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
It's a great way to set a tone for this. What is it about the form of poetry that intrigues you so much? And what do you think it is about poetry that allows you to effectively express yourself and connect to your audiences?
When I was a kid and I fell in love with poetry, it was just the fact of line breaks. I loved the fact that poems were broken into lines and that each line had its own meaning, and that meaning would change when you went to the other line. There's two lines in a Mark Doty poem called Charlie Howard's Descent are he transforms into grace. Even in that moment, you have a sense of one thing and suddenly that thing changes and lands into something even greater than what your sense of it may have been. And so that was that's what originally attracted me to poetry. And I think that some of that has a lot to do with why I'm still interested in it. I'm interested in poems being like human beings, being living things, and being of use to us because of that, because they can show more than one thing at one time. And I think that's what intrigues me about poetry. And that's what keeps me coming back to it. The fact that language has valences and that poetry exposes the possibility of valences in a single line or in several lines.
That was a beautiful explanation. So thank you. So, your body of work covers a variety of traumatic and personal topics, from interpersonal violence and assault to police brutality and systemic racism to our current climate in the time of COVID. Whenever you're coping with these big issues in your personal life, is your immediate impulse to express your feelings through writing, or do you engage in other coping mechanisms first?
Yeah, I wish it was my immediate impulse to engage in writing. I'd have more books and I'd probably be farther along. Writing actually takes a great deal of gestation for me. I sort of listen to, um, I write in the same way that I listen to music. You know, I'm always listening to music retrospectively. Um, I'm sort of a big fan of anything old school once it's become old school, because then I can attach memories to it. Similarly, so for instance, if I think about what Brandy really meant to me in the late 90s and the early 2000s, she means all the more to me now because I have all of the memories of those songs, given what happened during that time. So when I listen to Have You Ever, I get more excited now because I have what I get now, plus everything I had back in the year 2000. And that same kind of thing is what I'm interested in poetry. I'll see something today that leaves a mark, and I know it's left a mark. I know I'm taken by it. And sometimes I'm taken by things and I don't even know how much they matter to me until years later when they come up in a poem. And I usually expect things to come up in a poem later, probably not in the moment. What I do that I think of coping, a coping mechanism or a coping strategy that deals with poetry is read it, not as much as write it. It's the reading of poems by other people throughout history in several languages, translated into English or in the English language. It's the reading of poetry that makes me feel secure somehow or safe. There's a way that Rumi is speaking all the way forward to me, which means that when I write a poem, I know I'm reaching out towards something in the future, which means a poem is a form of hope. It's a form of belief in a future. Maybe there will be no one there to read my poem in the future, but at least in writing the poem, I am casting about toward the future. And in reading people's poems, I'm allowing myself to be a future. I can think of myself as someone's future.
It's a way of like connecting
Yes,
to the past and the future.
yes, yes.
Very cool.
And also connecting in spite of whatever the current tribulation may be, right? So, yes, we have COVID, but there have been other viruses, other diseases, other pandemics, and other poems that have come out of those viruses, diseases, and pandemics. And those poems speak to this moment for me. And they also let me know that obviously we will survive somehow, even this moment.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. It like puts it in perspective of like, as difficult as this may seem, it's not going to last forever. Like, this is not the end of the world. Life always goes on. People
And
always
some-
face difficulty.
I mean, that's not to say that harm doesn't get done. Life goes on, but people also do lose their lives in the midst of all the atrocities that do go on, and we have to be honest about that, and we have to honor those people's lives.
Definitely. So, in the wake of the Me Too movement, society has finally made the positive shift of listening to survivors' truths. As a Black male survivor, do you feel like this movement has given you equal respect and acceptance? And do you feel like you have a space to freely express yourself?
I do think that we've been closer toward that. I don't know that we're there. I still think that when people tell the truth about being survivors, on the whole, not everyone, not me, not you, Shayna, but on the whole, I think people wish that those people would shut up. Folks wish not to hear those things, no matter how helpful they may be. It's sort of like the idea that not testing is what's going to get rid of COVID. Do you know? So if like the way to get rid of rape is for you not to say that you were raped, right? So I'm not sure that I would would go there necessarily. What was the second part or the next part?
Um, as a Black male survivor, do you feel like this movement has given you equal respect and acceptance?
Well, I haven't really thought about it because I never thought that it needed to. Um, I felt that I needed to be honest about some things that I saw other men were not necessarily being honest about. Um, and I think, I don't know if I don't know that anybody owes me anything for that. I just felt like I needed to do something that at the time, it's not like, it wasn't do the right thing. It was more like convicted. You know, in the old church where I grew up, people would say you feel convicted, which is different from feeling guilty. It's like feeling like, oh, I need to fulfill this because it's what I should do next. There was a lot going on in the Me Too movement, and I realized everything that was going on was coming from women. And I understood that not just myself, but many of the other men I know had their first sexual experiences when they were very young, preteens, very young teenagers, and they had those sexual experiences with grown people. And when you talk to many of those men, they don't call those assaults. They call those their first experiences or their early experiences, not really thinking about what that means until they look at their own children. You know, when you have kids, that changes things. When you say that's a 10-year-old boy, right? And that's how old I was when these things were happening to me. And suddenly you see what happened to you in a different light because you know you wouldn't want that to happen to your 10-year-old boy. So those are the kinds of things that I'm really interested in. I'm interested not in the fact of the language of the movement as much as I am, or whether or not I can sort of count myself a part of it or extricated from it or should be or should not be. I'm just interested in the movement doing its work. And in any way that I can be a part of that, I would love to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think the work that you're doing is very important in like expanding the definition of sexual abuse to include not like just adult relationships and just heterosexual relationships. Like that is a big thing for people to understand, you know, to come to terms with their own things and for other people to like be more sympathetic also.
Yeah. Yes, it's very important, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people my age who are currently isolated and dealing with a multitude of stressors and are looking to express themselves creatively?
Well, I think maybe the advice I have isn't necessarily a creative expression, but I think given what's happening, what we have to do is seek out opportunities for laughter. We have to prioritize laughter. We have to prioritize humor in our lives. And you know, I am actually a person who, you know, before 5 o'clock, I've probably done a lot of laughing, but I need to make sure that I've done it. So one of the things that I've done during COVID times is every night before I go to bed, I watch an episode of The Golden Girls because I know that's going to make me laugh. And I know I'll be able to say I laughed at least, and I went and I got that laughter at least once in the day. And it might not be The Golden Girls for you or for whoever is viewing this, but it is important that you find the things that make you laugh and you go to them, that not happen upon them, that you daily go to them. Now you might need to put a little time constraint on them. You might need to say, I'm gonna laugh for 15 minutes or 30 minutes. You know, if you're still laughing and it's 5 hours, you ain't got no work done. But I think it's good to go after laughter. And if you can go after laughter, if you can chase it down and catch it, and if you could do that daily, I think the way will be made for creative expression, but you've got to lighten some things up so that you can feel like playing. Because real creative expression is about play or feeling like play. I love calling my poems my work because it means my work is my play.
That's great. Yeah. I know for myself personally, like I have to do I know I have to do a thing of yoga before I write anything, because I'm like, I need to get in the headspace of relaxation and openness before I do anything, because if not, I'm just going to be so stressed and all these problems in my head. So that's laughter is another way to do that, and I will definitely take that to heart and try to put that into my daily routine. So thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Shayna, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for taking the time. This was an amazing discussion, and your poem was fantastic. So thank you for sharing that with us too.